Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the massive alien ships move through space like floating cities. Each one was 10 times larger than his own vessel. The sight never failed to remind him of humanity's place in the galaxy, small, weak, and barely tolerated. "Captain, we're getting another message from the Vorthan flagship," said Amy Clark from her communications station. Her voice carried the same tired tone they all had when dealing with the aliens. "They want to inspect our cargo again." Jake sighed. This was the third inspection in 2 days. The Vorthan Empire loved to remind humans that they existed only because the Hegemony Council allowed it. "Tell them we'll comply," he said. Again. Lisa Kane looked up from her navigation console. "Sir, at this rate we'll be delayed another 6 hours. The colonists on Kepler 7 are expecting those medical supplies." "I know," Jake replied. "But if we refuse, they'll impound our ship. Then no one gets the supplies." Pete Rodriguez emerged from the engine room, wiping grease from his hands. "Captain, I've been monitoring their scanning patterns. They're not looking for contraband. They're just showing us who's in charge." Jake nodded. That was exactly what they were doing. The five, races that made up the Hegemony Council had ruled the galaxy for over 10,000 years. The Zephyrians with their crystal technology, the Vorthan Empire with their massive warships, the Crystalline Collective with their hive minds, the Plasma Lords with their energy weapons, and the ancient Ethereals with their mysterious powers. Together, they controlled everything. Humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. When Earth's first explorers reached the stars, they found a galaxy already carved up and controlled. Humans were given a few small worlds to colonize and told to be grateful. Any attempt to expand further was met with swift punishment. The Defiance was one of only 12 human ships allowed to travel beyond the Sol system. Each one required special permits, carried tracking devices, and could be stopped and searched at any time. Jake's crew had spent the last 5 years running supplies to human colonies, always under the watchful eyes of alien overseers. "Captain, they're boarding us now," Amy reported. The airlock hissed open, and 3 Vorthan soldiers stomped onto the bridge. They were 8 feet tall, covered in thick purple scales, and wore armor that could stop most human weapons. Their leader spoke in broken English, his voice like grinding stone. "Human ship. We inspect cargo. You wait." Jake clenched his fists, but kept his voice steady. "Of course. We're carrying medical supplies for the human colony on Kepler 7, all properly documented." The Vorthan soldier ignored him and began checking his handheld scanner. For the next 2 hours, they went through every crate, every container, every piece of equipment on the ship. They already knew what was aboard. Their computers had all the cargo manifests. This was just humiliation. When they finally left, Amy slumped in her chair. "I hate this," she muttered. "I hate all of this." "We all do," Jake said quietly. "But this is the reality we live in." Back on Earth, Ambassador Helen Baker faced similar humiliation every day. She sat in the massive assembly hall on Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Hegemony. Around her, representatives from hundreds of species filled the chamber. Most were puppet delegates from worlds under Hegemony control. The current speaker was a Zephyrian named Veltar, his crystalline body reflecting the chamber's lights as he spoke. "The primitive human world Terra has requested reduced mining quotas for the 3rd time this cycle. This request is denied. Human worlds will increase their rare earth mineral production by 15%. Helen stood up. Ambassador Veltar, with respect, our mining operations are already at maximum capacity. Our people are working 18-hour shifts just to meet current quotas. We simply cannot— Silence. Veltar's voice echoed through the chamber. Humans will comply, or face, corrective measures. Your species exists because we allow it. Remember this. Laughter rippled through the alien delegates. Helen felt her face burn with shame and anger, but she sat down. Speaking further would only make things worse. Later, in her small quarters, Helen recorded her daily report to Earth. President Johnson, the situation continues to deteriorate. The hegemony has increased our mining quotas again. They've also demanded that we provide 100,000 human workers for their off-world operations. The conditions in those facilities— She paused, thinking of the reports she'd seen. Humans working in alien mines lived in overcrowded barracks, ate processed nutrient paste, and died young from exposure to toxic materials. But officially, these were voluntary work programs that helped humanity contribute to galactic civilization. They view us as barely intelligent animals, Helen continued. Useful for manual labor, but not worthy of respect or equal treatment. I fear things will only get worse. On the human colony world of Haven 7, families struggled under the weight of alien taxation. Mayor Bob Wilson watched as another hegemony— transport landed in the town square. Alien soldiers emerged, followed by officials carrying lists. People of Haven 7, announced a plasma lord whose body glowed with contained energy. Your monthly tribute is due. 50 tons of processed grain, 20 tons of rare metals, and 200 volunteers for labor service. The crowd of humans muttered angrily. They barely had enough food for themselves, and the volunteers were really prisoners who would never return home. Wilson stepped forward. We gave you everything last month. Our children are going hungry. Please, can't we negotiate? The Plasma Lord's energy flared brighter. There is no negotiation. You will comply, or your colony will be relocated to less hospitable worlds. Wilson knew what that meant. Relocation was a death sentence. Humans would be moved to barren worlds where they would slowly starve or freeze to death. This scene played out across dozens of human worlds. The message was always the same. Humans existed at the mercy of their alien masters. Any resistance was met with crushing force. Any request for fairness was denied. Dr. Susan Hill watched from her laboratory on Earth as another shipment of advanced medical equipment was confiscated at the spaceport. The hegemony claimed that humans were not ready for such technology. Meanwhile, thousands of people died from diseases that could be easily cured with alien medicine. It's not about our readiness, Susan told her assistant. It's about keeping us dependent. They want us to need them for everything. But something was changing. In secret facilities around Earth and the lunar colonies, human scientists worked on projects the aliens knew nothing about. Captured alien technology was being studied, reverse-engineered, and improved. Slowly, carefully, humanity was preparing for something. Admiral Frank Cross reviewed intelligence reports in his underground command center. Photos of alien military positions, communication intercepts, and technical specifications filled his screens. His wife and daughter were somewhere out there, working in alien facilities under conditions he couldn't bear to imagine. Sir, his aide approached with a new report. The Zephyrians have started moving battle fleets into human space. Intelligence suggests they're planning something big. Cross nodded grimly. The aliens were getting ready to tighten their grip even further, but they didn't know that humanity was getting ready too. The question was, who would make the first move? The message arrived on a Tuesday morning. President Carl Johnson sat in his office reading the formal communication from the Hegemony Council. His hands shook slightly as he reached the end. "They want 60% of our rare earth minerals," he said to his cabinet, "and 100,000 workers for their mining colonies." Defense Secretary Kate Phillips leaned forward. "Sir, that's impossible. Our current mining operations barely keep our own industries running. And those mining colonies? We've all seen the reports. The reports were classified, but everyone in the room knew the truth. Humans sent to alien mining colonies worked in conditions that killed most within 5 years. The lucky ones died quickly from accidents. The unlucky ones slowly succumbed to radiation poisoning or toxic exposure. "What happens if we refuse?" asked Johnson. "They'll implement corrective measures," replied Helen Baker through the video link from Nexus Prime. "That usually means military action." Johnson stared out the window at the city below. 12 billion. Humans lived on Earth, going about their daily lives. Most didn't fully understand how precarious their situation was. The alien ships in orbit weren't just for show. They were a constant reminder of who really held power. "Madam Ambassador, do we have any allies on the Council?" Helen's laugh was bitter. "Sir, we're not even considered a real member. We have no voting rights, no voice in decisions. We're property, not partners." 3 days later, Commander Ryan Parker received his orders. He was to lead a supply convoy to Haven 7, where human colonists were struggling under increased alien demands. The convoy consisted of 6 cargo ships filled with food, medicine, and basic supplies. "Remember," Ryan told his captains during the briefing, "we're on a peaceful mission. Keep your weapons powered down and follow all hegemony shipping protocols. We can't afford to give them any excuse for aggression." Ryan's younger brother, Danny, served as his communications officer aboard the lead ship. At 25, Danny was full of the same quiet anger that burned in most young humans. He'd grown up hearing stories of Earth before the aliens arrived, when humans controlled their own destiny. "Ryan," Danny said as they entered the Haven 7 system, "I'm detecting multiple alien ships on the edge of sensor range." Ryan frowned. "That's unusual. The shipping lanes should be clear." Suddenly, warning alarms filled the bridge. 6 Vorthon warships had appeared from behind a nearby asteroid field. Their weapons were already charging. "All ships, this is Commander Parker," Ryan broadcast to his convoy. "Maintain course and speed. Do not take any aggressive actions." The lead Vorthon ship opened communications. The alien captain's voice was cold and mechanical. "Human vessels, you are in violation of new hegemony regulations. Your cargo is now forfeit." "What regulations?" Ryan demanded. "We filed all proper paperwork. This convoy was approved by your authorities. Regulations have changed. Human ships may no longer carry strategic materials without special authorization." Ryan's heart sank. The medicine and food they carried were hardly strategic materials. This was just another excuse to hurt humanity. "Our colonists need these supplies. They'll die without them." "Not our concern," the alien replied. "Prepare to be boarded." What happened next would be remembered as the Haven 7 massacre. The Vorthan ships didn't just board the human vessels. They opened fire. One by one, the cargo ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The aliens made no attempt to capture crews or cargo. They simply destroyed everything. Ryan watched in horror as his ships died around him. The convoy that had taken months to organize was gone in minutes. Hundreds of human crew members, people he'd served with for years, were dead. "Danny, get us out of here!" he shouted. But it was too late. Vorthon fighters swarmed their ship. Boarding pods slammed into the hull. Purple-scaled soldiers poured through the breaches, their weapons cutting down anyone who resisted. Danny managed to send one final message before the aliens reached the bridge. Haven 7 convoy destroyed. Unprovoked attack. Tell Earth. Tell them we tried. On Earth, the news hit like a physical blow. Admiral Frank Cross stared at the report with growing rage. Ryan Parker had been a good officer, a man who'd never hurt anyone. His brother Danny was just a kid following in his footsteps. "How many survivors?" Cross asked. 17, came the reply. "The aliens captured them for labor service. According to our sources, they're being sent to the Kepler mining complex." Cross knew what that meant. The Kepler complex was one of the worst alien facilities. Humans sent there rarely lived more than 2 years. But worse news was coming. The next day, long-range sensors detected a massive alien fleet moving toward the Alpha Centauri system. Earth's first extrasolar colony was home to 300,000 humans, including many families with children. President Johnson tried to contact the Hegemony Council, demanding an explanation. The response was swift and brutal. Without warning, the aliens opened fire on the civilian space station orbiting Alpha Centauri Prime. The station housed research facilities, schools, and residential areas for mining families. Dr. Tony Green was in his laboratory when the first alien energy beam hit. The station shook violently, throwing equipment across the room. Emergency alarms wailed as hull breaches vented atmosphere into space. "All civilians to escape pods," came the announcement over the intercom. "This is not a drill," Tony ran through, corridors filled with panicking people. Children cried as parents carried them toward emergency exits. The station's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, making movement difficult. He reached an observation window just as the second energy beam struck. This one hit the residential section directly. Tony watched in horror as an entire section of the station exploded, taking hundreds of families with it. The attack lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the space station was gone. 300 civilians, including Admiral Cross's wife and daughter, were dead. The mining colony below was left untouched. The aliens still wanted the rare metals it produced. The message was clear. Resist, and innocent people die. Back on Earth, something fundamental changed in the human spirit. For 50 years, they'd endured alien domination with quiet resentment. They'd followed the rules, paid the taxes, and provided the labor. In return, they'd been treated like animals. Admiral Cross stood in the ruins of his office, holding a photograph of his family. His wife Sarah had been a teacher on the station. His daughter Emma was only 12 years old. They died because he was human, and humans had no rights in the galaxy. President Johnson called an emergency session of Earth's government. Representatives from every nation and colony attended via secure video link. The anger in the room was palpable. "They've made their position clear," Johnson said quietly. "We can submit completely or they'll kill us all. Those are our only choices." "No," said Admiral Cross, his voice like ice. "There's a third choice." Everyone turned to look at him. Cross had always been a moderate voice, arguing for patience and diplomacy. But something had broken inside him when his family died. "We fight back," he continued. "We've spent 50 years preparing for this day, even if we didn't know it. hidden research projects, captured alien technology, secret military preparations. The aliens think we're weak because they want to think we're weak. Frank, said President Johnson carefully, they have thousands of ships. Energy weapons that can destroy planets. What could we possibly do against that? Cross smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We show them what happens when you push humans too far. We show them what species survived on a death world for millions of years. Dr. Susan Hill spoke up from her secure facility. The Project Eclipse teams have made significant breakthroughs. We understand alien shield technology now. More importantly, we know how to defeat it. Around the room, other voices joined in. Secret programs were revealed, hidden weapons unveiled, classified research shared for the first time. For decades, humanity's best minds had been preparing for this moment without even realizing it. The aliens expect us to surrender, Cross said. They expect us to beg for mercy like every other species they've conquered. But humans don't surrender. We never have. The vote was unanimous. Every representative from every nation and colony agreed. Humanity would fight. President Johnson composed the final diplomatic message to the Hegemony Council. It was short and to the point. We reject your demands. We will no longer submit to your authority. We choose freedom or death. The alien response came within hours. It was even shorter. Then you choose death. War was coming to the galaxy. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Hegemony Council would face a species that refused to kneel. They had no idea what they'd unleashed. Deep beneath the lunar surface, Dr. Tony Green stood before a weapon that shouldn't exist. The quantum disruptor was humanity's greatest secret, built using knowledge stolen from a dozen alien races over 20 years. It looked simple enough, a sleek device no larger than a briefcase. But Green knew it could tear apart the quantum fields that held alien matter together. Final test is complete, he reported to the secure video conference. The disruptor works perfectly against Zephyrian crystal technology. Their shields collapse within seconds. On the screen, Admiral Frank Cross nodded grimly. Around him sat the leaders of humanity's secret military preparations. General Kate Phillips commanded ground forces that had been training in hidden facilities across the solar system. Admiral Sam Wright oversaw the construction of ships in asteroid belts where alien sensors couldn't detect them. Colonel Dean Hayes led special forces teams that had been practicing alien ship boarding procedures for years. How many units can we produce? Cross asked. We have 50 ready now, Green replied. With our hidden factories, we can make 10 more per day once we start full production. That's not enough for a full-scale war, said General Phillips. Green smiled. It doesn't need to be. We're not planning to fight fair. The truth was that humanity had been preparing for this war since the day they first encountered aliens. Every trade mission had included intelligence gathering. Every cultural exchange had been an opportunity to study alien technology. Every human worker sent to alien facilities had been instructed to observe and report. Captain Jack Taylor commanded the UES Shadowhawk, humanity's first true stealth ship. Built using a combination of human innovation and stolen alien technology, it could move through space virtually undetected. For 3 years, Taylor had been mapping alien military positions throughout the galaxy. Sir, he reported to Admiral Cross, we've identified critical weaknesses in the Hegemony's defense grid. They haven't fought a real war in so long that they've become careless. Most of their ships are designed for intimidation, not actual combat. Taylor's intelligence reports painted a picture of an enemy that looked powerful but had serious flaws. The Vorthan Empire's massive dreadnoughts were impressive, but slow and poorly maneuvered. The crystalline collective's hive mind ships could be disrupted by targeting their central command nodes. The Plasma Lord's energy weapons were devastating but required enormous power that left their ships vulnerable during recharge cycles. "What about their numbers?" asked Admiral Wright. "They have thousands of ships," Taylor admitted. "But most are scattered across the galaxy, keeping different species in line. They can't concentrate their full force without risking rebellions on occupied worlds." Tech specialist Emma Davis had spent 5 years working in an alien research facility, pretending to be a simple human laborer. In reality, she held 3 advanced degrees in quantum physics and had been systematically stealing alien technical data. "I've completed the virus program," she announced. "The Liberation virus can take control of any hegemony computer system within minutes. Their ships use automated systems for everything: navigation, weapons, life support. Once we upload the virus, their own ships will turn against them." The plan that emerged was audacious beyond anything the galaxy had seen. Humanity wouldn't just fight the hegemony, they would liberate every oppressed species at the same time. Secret communications had been sent to resistance groups across the galaxy. The Saurians, enslaved for 2,000 years, had agreed to coordinate their uprising with humanity's attack. The aquatic cetaceans, whose ocean worlds had been strip-mined for decades, promised to disrupt alien supply lines. President Carl Johnson addressed the secret session of Earth's government. "We're about to commit humanity to a war that will determine our species' survival. If we lose, every human in the galaxy will be executed. But if we do nothing, we'll be slowly murdered anyway. At least this way, we die fighting." The Churchill Protocol was activated. Named after an ancient Earth leader who had refused to surrender against impossible odds, it represented humanity's final contingency plan. Every human ship, every hidden weapon, every secret facility would be revealed simultaneously in a coordinated strike. Admiral Cross stood in the main command center, watching as reports came in from across the solar system. Hidden shipyards around Jupiter were launching vessels that had been built in complete secrecy. Training facilities on Mars were releasing soldiers who had been preparing for alien combat for years. Weapons caches hidden in asteroid belts were being activated. "Admiral," reported Captain Mike Turner from the bridge of the UES Retribution, "all ships are ready. We're 30 minutes from the jump point." Cross looked around the command center at his staff. These men and women had dedicated their lives to preparing for this moment. Many of them had lost family and friends to alien oppression. All of them knew they might not survive the next 24 hours. "Send the final message to the Hegemony Council," Cross ordered. The message was simple. "You wanted to know what happens when humans lose patience. You're about to find out." Ambassador Helen Baker sat in her quarters on Nexus Prime, knowing that alien security forces would arrest her within hours. Her diplomatic immunity meant nothing now that humanity had declared war. But her job wasn't to escape, it was to coordinate with other resistance groups on the hegemony capital world. She opened a hidden communication channel to Dr. Lisa Kane, a human scientist who had been working on Nexus Prime for 3 years. "Lisa, are you ready?" "The charges are planted throughout the planetary defense grid," Lisa replied. "Once your signal comes, their orbital shields will collapse." Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. Humans who had seemed like ordinary workers or researchers revealed themselves as highly trained saboteurs. Years of preparation were about to pay off. Commander Ryan Parker had survived the Haven 7 massacre and been sent to a labor camp on the mining world of Kepler 9. The aliens thought he was broken, just another defeated human prisoner. They had no idea that he'd been organizing a prisoner rebellion for months. "When the signal comes," he told his fellow prisoners, "we take the communication center first, then the vehicle depot. The guards won't expect organized resistance from primitive humans." His brother Danny, rescued from another facility by human special forces, had provided crucial intelligence about alien security procedures. The Parker brothers were about to get their revenge. Dr. Susan Hill worked frantically in her hidden laboratory, producing the final batch of quantum disruptors. Each device was small enough to carry but powerful enough to disable alien ships. She'd spent years perfecting the technology, knowing that humanity's survival might depend on it. "Transport ready," announced Colonel Hayes through the communication system. "We'll deliver these to strike teams throughout the galaxy." Hayes commanded humanity's most elite soldiers, men and women who had trained for years in alien ship design and combat techniques. They would board enemy vessels and plant the disruptors directly into their power cores. President Johnson made one final attempt at diplomacy, sending a message to the Hegemony Council offering terms for peaceful coexistence. The response was predictable: complete surrender or total annihilation. "They still don't understand," Johnson told his cabinet. "They think we're bluffing. They can't imagine that a primitive species would dare challenge them." "Their mistake," replied Admiral Cross. "In 30 minutes, every alien leader in the galaxy will know exactly what humans are capable of." The countdown reached 0. Across the galaxy, humanity's hidden forces emerged from the shadows. Ships that weren't supposed to exist opened fire on alien installations. Weapons that shouldn't work tore through energy shields. Viruses that couldn't be detected took control of alien computer systems. The galaxy was about to learn why humans were the only species to evolve on a world where everything tried to kill them. The aliens had ruled through fear and intimidation for 10,000 years. But humans had learned something more powerful during their evolution: how to fight back against impossible odds. The war for galactic freedom had begun, and humanity was done being patient. Captain Mike Turner gripped his command chair as the UES Retribution dropped out of hyperspace. Before them hung Kepler Station, a massive Vorthon military base that controlled 3 star systems. For 20 years, the station had been a symbol of alien dominance. In the next hour, it would become humanity's first victory. "All ships, this is Turner," he broadcast to the 12 vessels under his command. "Execute Operation Thunder. Show them what humans do when we stop being nice." The Vorthon defenders barely had time to react. Their sensors showed impossible readings. Human ships that should not exist, moving at speeds that defied their understanding of human technology. The massive alien dreadnoughts began turning their weapons toward the attackers, but they moved like sleeping giants compared to the swift human vessels. Turner's weapons officer, Lieutenant Roy Bell, activated the quantum disruptors. The first beam struck the station's primary shield generator. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the massive energy barrier that protected the station simply vanished, dissolving like mist in sunlight. "Impossible," transmitted the Vorthon station. "Commander, your primitive weapons cannot penetrate our defenses." "Watch us," Turner replied, then ordered his fleet to open fire. Human weapons, based on stolen alien technology but improved by human innovation, tore through the station's hull. The Vorthons had built their defenses to withstand energy weapons like their own. They had never encountered kinetic projectiles moving at relativistic speeds or quantum disruptors that unraveled the fundamental forces holding matter together. Within minutes, Kepler Station was a burning wreck. The Vorthan ships that tried to respond found themselves fighting an enemy that moved in ways their computers couldn't predict. Human tactics developed through centuries of warfare on Earth emphasized speed, surprise, and adaptability. Their rigid alien military doctrines had no answer for opponents who refused to follow established patterns. Simultaneously, Commander Sarah Walsh led marine assaults on 3 different prison worlds. Her target was Sigma 7, where over 10,000 humans were held in forced labor camps. But Walsh's mission wasn't just to rescue humans. She planned to liberate every enslaved species on the planet. Remember, she told her Marines as they prepared, to board their assault craft, we're not just fighting for ourselves. Every species in those camps has been waiting for someone to give them hope. Today, we're that someone. The landing was perfect. Human stealth technology allowed Walsh's ships to penetrate the planet's defenses without detection. The guards knew of the attack was when their communication centers exploded and their security systems went offline. Walsh's Marines moved through the prison complex like ghosts. Years of training in alien facility layouts paid off as they disabled guard posts and freed prisoners with mechanical precision. But the real surprise came when the liberated aliens joined the fight. Krex, a Saurian general who had been imprisoned for 20 years, grabbed a fallen guard's weapon and rallied his people. Brothers, the humans fight for our freedom. Today, we reclaim our honor. The aquatic cetaceans, despite being far from their ocean homeworlds, used their natural sonar abilities to coordinate attacks through the facility's water systems. Species that had been enemies for generations united under human leadership to fight their common oppressors. This is incredible, Walsh reported as she watched a group of former prisoners disable an alien gunship using nothing but teamwork and determination. They're not just following our lead. They're improving our tactics. Back at Hegemony headquarters on Nexus Prime, the alien leadership struggled to understand what was happening. For 10,000 years, they had crushed any hint of rebellion with overwhelming force. Primitive species weren't supposed to have advanced weapons. They certainly weren't supposed to coordinate galaxy-wide uprisings. Veltar, the crystalline Zephyrian who served as council chairman, studied the battle reports with growing disbelief. The humans are using our own technology against us. How is this possible? Perhaps we underestimated their intelligence, suggested Morgax, a plasma lord whose energy form flickered with agitation. Their species may be more advanced than we believed. Impossible, Veltar replied. We have monitored their development for 50 years. They are primitives who barely mastered interstellar travel. But the evidence was undeniable. Human ships were destroying hegemony facilities across 3 sectors. Worse, they were doing it with a level of tactical sophistication that suggested years of preparation. The humans hadn't just stumbled into advanced technology. They had systematically studied and improved upon it. Admiral Frank Cross watched the battle reports from his command center on Luna. Every engagement was going better than humanity's most optimistic projections. The aliens had grown complacent during 10 millennia of unchallenged rule. Their ships were powerful but inflexible, their tactics predictable, their responses slow. Sir, reported Captain Jack Taylor from the Shadowhawk, the Crystalline Collective is mobilizing their main fleet. 12 hive ships moving toward the Centauri sector. Cross smiled. The Crystalline Collective relied on telepathic communication between their ships, with a single hive mind controlling entire fleets. It was efficient, but vulnerable. Send the signal to Team Echo. Time to test our psychic dampening technology. Lieutenant. Colonel Beth Rogers commanded Team Echo, a special forces unit that had trained specifically to infiltrate crystalline ships. Their mission was to plant psychic dampening devices directly into the hive mind communication nodes. Approaching target. Now, Rogers reported as her stealth ship closed on the lead hive vessel. Their telepathic communications are incredibly strong. It's like trying to think through a thunderstorm. But human mental resilience, evolved on a world that had tried to kill them for millions of years, proved stronger than alien psychic powers. Rogers and her team fought through the telepathic noise and planted their devices throughout the ship's neural network. The effect was immediate and devastating. Cut off from the hive mind, the crystalline warriors became confused and disoriented. Ships that had moved in perfect coordination suddenly began firing on each other. The entire fleet dissolved into chaos within minutes. Target neutralized, Rogers reported with satisfaction. Looks like their hive mind has a few bugs in it. The psychological impact of these early victories spread throughout the galaxy faster than the military results. For the first time in thousands of years, oppressed species saw their masters defeated in open combat. Rebellion broke out on dozens of worlds as the supposedly invincible hegemony revealed its weakness. Dr. Tony Green coordinated the technical aspects of the war from his lunar facility. The quantum disruptors were performing beyond expectations, but Green knew the aliens would adapt quickly once they understood the technology. We need to stay ahead of their countermeasures, he told his research team. They'll figure out how to shield against quantum disruption within days. We need something even better ready. Emma Davis, working from her hidden position within an alien research facility, provided real-time intelligence on hegemony countermeasures. They're trying to modify their shield frequencies, she reported. But they don't understand the underlying physics. We can adjust our disruptors faster than they can develop defenses. President Carl Johnson addressed the human population from his secure bunker. My fellow humans, today we took our first steps toward freedom. Our brave men and women have shown the galaxy that humanity will not be enslaved. But this is only the beginning. The real war starts now. The alien response was swift and brutal. The Hegemony Council authorized the use of planet-killing weapons against human worlds. Massive energy beams capable of cracking continents were charged and aimed at Earth's outer colonies. But humanity had prepared for this too. Captain Ashley Brown commanded the UES Vengeance, one of 12 ships equipped with experimental shielding technology. Her mission was to intercept the planet-killer weapons before they could reach their targets. All ships formed defensive screen around New. Moscow Colony, Brown ordered. Those energy beams are powerful, but they're slow. We can take them. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships, small and fast compared to alien dreadnoughts, danced around massive energy beams while striking at the weapon's power sources. Brown's tactical brilliance turned the engagement into a masterpiece of space combat. Target their beam generators, she commanded. Those weapons take minutes to recharge. Hit them during the power-up cycle. One by one, the planet-killer weapons fell silent. The human colonies were saved, and the galaxy witnessed something impossible. Primitive humans had defeated the hegemony's most powerful weapons using nothing but superior tactics and courage. The first day of the war ended with humanity victorious on every front. But Admiral Cross knew this was just the beginning. The aliens had thousands more ships, billions of soldiers, and weapons humanity hadn't even seen yet. Enjoy this victory, he told his staff. Tomorrow they'll be ready for us. The real test comes when they stop underestimating us and start fighting back with everything they have. But across the galaxy, in the slave quarters of 1,000 worlds, oppressed beings looked up at the stars with hope for the first time. News of humanity's victories spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On the industrial world of Forge 9, Saurian workers stopped their machines and looked up at the sky. For 2,000 years, their people had been slaves to the hegemony. But the humans had proven that even the mighty could fall. Krex, the Saurian general freed from Sigma-7, had become something of a legend among his people. His messages, transmitted secretly through the Galactic Communication Network, reached every Saurian colony and work camp. "My brothers and sisters," his voice echoed through hidden receivers in slave quarters across dozens of worlds. "The humans have shown us the path to freedom. Today, we walk that path together. Today, we remember what it means to be Saurian." The first uprising began on the mining world of Talos 3. 10,000 Saurian workers overwhelmed their guards using nothing but mining equipment and raw courage. Within hours, they had seized control of the orbital defense platforms and were sending captured weapons to other Saurian worlds. Colonel Dan Murphy, humanity's liaison to alien resistance groups, watched the reports with amazement. "Sir," he told Admiral Cross, "we're seeing coordinated uprisings on 47 worlds. The Saurians aren't just fighting, they're winning." But the Saurians weren't alone. In the deep ocean trenches of Aquarius Prime, the cetaceans began their own rebellion. These massive, intelligent creatures had been forced to harvest rare minerals from their ocean floors, while their children were held hostage to ensure compliance. Admiral Tidal Singer, the cetacean leader, commanded forces unlike anything the galaxy had seen. His people could move through water at incredible speeds, coordinate attacks through sonar that traveled across entire continents, and use their natural bioelectric abilities to disable alien equipment. Captain Eve Watson, humanity's naval warfare specialist, had trained extensively with captured cetacean prisoners. Now she worked directly with Tidal Singer to coordinate joint operations. "Your people's ability to move unseen through water is incredible," Watson told the massive cetacean commander. "Combined with our stealth technology, we can strike anywhere in the galaxy." The hegemony had never faced a coordinated multi-species rebellion. Their forces were designed to crush individual uprisings, not galaxy-wide revolutions. As reports poured in from across their territory, the alien leadership began to panic. 17 major industrial worlds have gone offline," reported a Vorthon intelligence officer to the Council. "The Saurians and Cetaceans are coordinating their attacks with human forces. Our supply lines are collapsing." The hegemony's response was predictably brutal. They deployed their elite battle fleets to crush the rebellions with overwhelming force, but they quickly discovered that fighting humans was unlike anything they had experienced before. Commander Larry Scott commanded the defense of Earth's orbital platforms when the Zephyrian attack fleet arrived. 50 crystalline ships, each one larger than a human city, approached Earth with weapons charged and ready to fire. "All defensive platforms, implement swarm protocol," Scott ordered. What followed defied every principle of space combat the aliens understood. Instead of meeting the attack with large ships, Earth's defenses consisted of thousands of small fighters that moved like angry insects around the massive alien vessels. The Zephyrians tried to target the human fighters with their main weapons, but it was like trying to swat flies with a sledgehammer. Meanwhile, the small human ships carried quantum disruptors that could penetrate crystalline armor at close range. "Impossible," transmitted the Zephyrian fleet commander as his ships began, taking critical damage. "These primitive craft should not be able to harm our vessels." "Surprise!" Scott replied as another Zephyrian ship exploded. Turns out size isn't everything. The battle lasted 6 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the Zephyrian fleet. Not a single alien ship escaped to report what they had learned. Earth's orbital defenses were intact, and the galaxy received another lesson in human ingenuity. Captain Ashley Brown had been promoted to admiral after her success in defending the colonies. Now she commanded the UES Vengeance in the Battle of the Meridian Nebula, where intelligence reported a massive Vorthon fleet was massing for an assault on human space. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, "long-range sensors confirm 87 Vorthon ships in the nebula. They're using the interference to mask their approach." Brown studied the tactical display. The Meridian Nebula was a massive cloud of charged particles that would disrupt most sensors and communications. The Vorthons thought it would hide their advance. They were about to learn that humans had a different relationship with hostile environments. "All ships, enter the nebula," Brown ordered. "We're going hunting." Human ships, designed with Earth's harsh environment in mind, handled the nebula's interference far better than alien vessels. While Vorthon ships struggled with navigation and communication in the charged particle storm, human vessels used the environment to their advantage. Brown's fleet struck like ghosts in the cosmic fog. They would appear out of the nebula's swirling clouds, fire their weapons, and vanish again before the Vorthons could respond. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't see in an environment that crippled their technology. "This is impossible," raged the Vorthon admiral as another of his ships exploded. "How are they navigating through this interference?" "Maybe because we're used to difficult conditions," Brown replied over the communication channel. "You've been sitting in comfortable space stations for too long." By the battle's end, the entire Vorthon fleet was destroyed. The nebula that was supposed to hide their advance had become their tomb. Admiral Brown's tactics were studied by resistance forces throughout the galaxy and became the standard for asymmetric warfare against superior forces. Meanwhile, Dr. Nancy White was putting the finishing touches on humanity's most ambitious project yet. Working from a hidden laboratory in the asteroid belt, she had developed what her team called the Liberation Virus, a computer program that could take control of alien artificial intelligence systems. The beauty of it, she explained to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is that the hegemony has become completely dependent on automated systems. Their ships, their weapons, their life support, everything is controlled by AI, and AI can be reprogrammed. The first test came when a Plasma Lord battle group approached the human colony on Kepler 7. These energy beings relied entirely on their ship's computer systems to maintain their physical forms in normal space. Without their technology, they would dissipate into harmless radiation. "Deploying Liberation Virus now," reported the UES Defiance as it approached the alien fleet on what appeared to be a suicide run. The virus spread through the Plasma Lord ship's networks like wildfire. Within minutes, the aliens found their own vessels turning against them. Weapons that should have fired at humans instead targeted other ships in the fleet. Life support systems designed to contain Plasma Lord energy forms began shutting down. "What is happening?" transmitted the Plasma Lord commander as his physical form began to flicker. "Our ships are malfunctioning." "Not malfunctioning," replied Captain Jake Morrison from the Defiance. "Liberated. Your own technology is choosing freedom over slavery." The entire Plasma Lord fleet was destroyed by their own ships. The psychological impact was enormous. If the hegemony's own technology could be turned against them, nowhere was safe. But the aliens were finally beginning to adapt. The crystalline collective developed new shielding that resisted quantum disruption. The Vorthon Empire began using smaller, more maneuverable ships. The Plasma Lords created manual override systems that couldn't be hacked. Most importantly, the 5 races of the Hegemony Council finally acknowledged that they faced a real threat. For the first time in 10,000 years, they began working together instead of pursuing their individual agendas. "The humans are more dangerous than we believed," admitted Veltar in the Emergency Council session. "They have turned our greatest strength, our advanced technology, into a weakness." "Perhaps it is time to negotiate," suggested one of the younger council members. "Never." Veltar's crystalline form blazed with anger. "We do not negotiate with primitives. We will crush this rebellion and make an example that will be remembered for another 10,000 years." The council authorized the deployment of their ultimate weapon, the ethereal death ships. These ancient vessels, powered by forces beyond normal understanding, had not been used in 5,000 years. They were kept in reserve against threats that could endanger the hegemony's very existence. "Deploy all 12 death ships," Veltar ordered. "Target every human world simultaneously. End this rebellion before it spreads further." But the ethereals, the most ancient and mysterious of the hegemony races, were reluctant to act. They had ruled through subtle manipulation for millennia, preferring to work through agents rather than direct confrontation. "The humans are different," communicated the ethereal known as the voice that whispers. "Their minds resist our influence in ways we have not encountered before. Perhaps caution would be wiser." "There is no time for caution," Veltar replied. "Every day this rebellion continues, more species join the humans. We must act now, or risk losing everything we have built." The decision was made. 12 ancient ships, each one capable of... Captain Roy Bell stood before the largest gathering of alien species in galactic history. Representatives from 17 different worlds filled the massive chamber on the liberated space station Unity-1. Saurians sat beside cetaceans. Crystalline beings shared space with energy creatures, and dozens of other species that had never trusted each other now looked to humanity for leadership. "Friends," Bell began, his translator broadcasting his words in dozens of languages. 6 months ago, we were all slaves. Different species, different worlds, but all of us under the same boot. Today we stand together as equals in the Free Worlds Alliance." The response was overwhelming. Roars, clicks, harmonics, and energy pulses filled the chamber as beings who had been enemies for centuries cheered together. Bell had spent his entire career in human diplomacy, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Krex, the Saurian general, stood to address the assembly. His massive frame dominated the podium as he spoke in his people's traditional growling voice. "For 2,000 years, my people believed freedom was impossible. The humans have shown us that even the impossible can be achieved with courage and unity." Admiral Tidalsinger's massive form shifted in his specialized water tank as he added his voice to the alliance. "The cetaceans pledge all our resources to this cause. Our worlds, our fleets, our lives, all are dedicated to ending the hegemony's reign of terror." But the most surprising addition to the alliance came from an unexpected source. The Geometric Collective, a species of crystalline beings similar to the Zephyrians but enslaved by them for 3,000 years, had broken free during humanity's initial attacks. Their representative, a being called Angular Harmony, spoke through harmonic vibrations that the translation systems barely understood. We offer knowledge of Zephyrian weaknesses. Their crystal technology has flaws that only we who were forced to maintain it truly understand. Bell coordinated the integration of these diverse forces with skills learned from humanity's long history of international cooperation. Unlike the hegemony's rigid hierarchy, the alliance operated on principles of mutual respect and democratic decision-making. Every species brings unique strengths, Bell explained to his staff. The Saurians are incredible ground fighters. The Cetaceans dominate any aquatic environment. The Geometric Collective understands crystal technology better than its creators. Our job is to help them work together. The first major test of the Alliance came at the industrial world Forge 9. Major Grace Foster led the liberation of this massive manufacturing complex where millions of enslaved beings had been forced to build hegemony warships. This isn't just about freeing prisoners, Foster explained to her mixed-species assault force. Forge 9 produces 30% of the hegemony's fleet. If we take it, we cut off their reinforcements and gain a massive industrial base. The attack was a masterpiece of interspecies cooperation. Saurian ground forces provided the muscle for direct assault. Cetacean engineers, working in the facility's flooded sections, disabled power systems and communication networks. Geometric, collective specialists hacked into the crystalline control systems that managed the automated factories. Meanwhile, human forces coordinated the overall strategy and provided the advanced weapons that made victory possible. Foster watched with pride as beings who had been slaves just months before worked together like a precision military unit. Target secured, she reported as the last hegemony defenders surrendered. Forge 9 is now under Alliance control. We have over 12 million liberated workers and enough industrial capacity to build our own fleet. But the hegemony wasn't about to let such a valuable prize slip away. Within days, a massive counterattack force was approaching Forge 9. Leading it was something the galaxy hadn't seen in 5,000 years, an ethereal death ship. The ancient vessel defied easy description. Part machine, part living organism, part pure energy, it moved through space like a predator stalking prey. Its weapons could disintegrate matter at the quantum level, and its defenses had never been penetrated by any known technology. Commander Joe Martinez commanded the Alliance fleet defending Forge 9. His ships included human vessels, captured hegemony, craft operated by liberated species, and improvised fighters built in the Forge 9 factories. Against an ethereal death ship, it seemed like a hopeless task. All ships, maintain defensive formation, Martinez ordered. Remember, we're not trying to win a stand-up fight. We just need to protect the evacuation. The ethereal ship opened. Fire with weapons that turned 3 Alliance vessels into clouds of quantum particles. Its psychic attacks reached across space, attempting to crush the minds of the defending crews. Many alien species immediately fell under ethereal mental control and began turning their weapons on their allies. But something unexpected happened. The human crews, and those aliens who had learned human mental techniques, resisted the psychic assault. Years of surviving on Earth's hostile environment had given humanity mental resilience that even the ancient ethereals couldn't break. "This is impossible," transmitted the mind that dominates from the ethereal ship. "Your primitive brains should not be able to resist our influence." "Maybe that's because we're used to things trying to kill us," Martinez replied. "Earth taught us that if you want to survive, you learn to fight back." The battle that followed redefined galactic warfare. Human and allied ships used their resistance to ethereal mental control to coordinate attacks that confused and frustrated the ancient enemy. They couldn't match the Death Ship's raw power, but they could outmaneuver it and force it to waste energy on targets that disappeared into asteroid fields and sensor shadows. Meanwhile, Captain Robin Stevens piloted the prototype UES Phoenix, equipped with humanity's latest achievement, a weapon that could disrupt the quantum forces that held exotic matter together. The Phoenix was experimental, untested, and potentially as dangerous to its crew as to the enemy. "Beginning attack run," Stevens reported as she guided her ship toward the ethereal vessel. "If this works, we'll have a new type of weapon. If it doesn't work, there won't be enough of us left to bury." The quantum disruptor beam struck the Death Ship's hull, and for a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then sections of the ancient vessel simply ceased to exist, creating massive hull breaches that vented the ship's exotic atmosphere into space. "Impossible," the mind that dominates screamed across all communication channels. "That weapon should not exist. Primitive species cannot create such technology." "Surprise," Stevens replied as she fired again. "We're full of impossibilities." The ethereal Death Ship, wounded for the first time in 5 millennia, retreated from the battle. The psychological impact was enormous. If humans could damage an ethereal vessel, perhaps the ancient rulers weren't invincible after all. News of the victory spread throughout the galaxy within hours. On worlds that had been under hegemony control for thousands of years, beings looked up at the stars and dared to hope. The Alliance wasn't just a human rebellion anymore. It was a galaxy-wide revolution. The Hegemony Council met in emergency session, their ancient chamber filled with an atmosphere of growing panic. 5 races that had ruled unchallenged for 10 millennia suddenly found themselves losing ground to a coalition of species they had considered inferior. "The humans are teaching their tactics to every species that joins them," reported a Vorthon military analyst. "They're not just fighting. They're creating an entirely new form of warfare based on cooperation instead of dominance." Veltar's crystalline form flickered with rage. "How many systems have we lost?" 47 major worlds have declared independence," came the reply. 300 minor colonies have joined the Alliance. Our industrial capacity has dropped by 60%. But the worst news was yet to come. The Plasma Lord representative delivered a report that shook the Council to its core. "Our computer systems are no longer secure. The human virus technology is spreading through our networks faster than we can develop countermeasures. They're turning our own technology against us." For the first time in their history, the hegemony faced an enemy that couldn't be defeated through traditional means. The humans had done something no other species had managed. They had united the galaxy's oppressed peoples into a force that grew stronger with every victory. "Perhaps," suggested one of the younger council members, "it is time to consider negotiation." "Never." Veltar's voice echoed through the chamber. "We will deploy every weapon, use every resource, sacrifice every ship if necessary. The hegemony has ruled for 10,000 years. We will not be defeated by primitives." But even as he spoke, reports were coming in of new Alliance victories. The revolution was spreading faster than the hegemony could respond. Species that had been enemies for millennia were working together under human leadership, sharing technology and tactics that made them collectively stronger than the sum of their parts. The galaxy was changing, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the future belonged to those who fought for freedom rather than those who enforced slavery. The Free Worlds Alliance had become something the hegemony had never faced before, a unified force fighting not for conquest, but for the simple right to exist as free beings. And at the center of it all, humanity continued to prove that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you underestimate. Admiral Frank Cross stood on the bridge of the UES Liberation, looking out at the largest fleet in galactic history. 2,000 ships from dozens of species hung in space around him, all united under the banner of the Free Worlds Alliance. Today, they would attack Nexus Prime itself, the capital world of the hegemony. All fleet commanders report status, Cross announced into his communication system. One by one, the voices came back. Krex commanded the Saurian battle group with 300 heavily armored ships. Admiral Tidalsinger led the cetacean forces, their bioships grown rather than built. Captain Roy Bell coordinated the diplomatic vessels that would attempt to contact resistance groups on the planet's surface. Human forces ready, reported Admiral Ashley Brown from the UES Vengeance. All quantum weapons charged and operational. Crazy E.O. had spent months planning this assault. Nexus Prime wasn't just the hegemony's political center. It was the most heavily defended world in the galaxy. Orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet like a metal shell. Energy barriers that could stop entire fleets protected the surface. The combined military might of 5 ancient civilizations defended their seat of power. Remember, Cross addressed the entire fleet. We're not just fighting for victory. We're fighting for the future of every free species in the galaxy. Make it count. The battle began when Alliance scout ships detected the approaching fleet. Alarms sounded across Nexus Prime as the planet's defenders mobilized. For the first time in 10,000 years, the hegemony capital faced a direct assault. Colonel Paul King led the first wave of ground forces toward the planet's surface. His mission was to establish landing zones for the main assault while Alliance ships battled the orbital defenses above. All units, remember your training, King broadcast to his mixed-species force. The city's layout favors defenders, but we've studied every street and building. Use the environment to your advantage. King's forces included human marines trained in urban warfare, Saurian shock troops who could tear through fortified positions, and geometric collective specialists who understood the city's crystalline infrastructure. They landed in the industrial sector, where months of planning had identified weaknesses in the planetary defense grid. Above them, Captain Nina Ward led her fighter squadron through the orbital battle. The space around Nexus Prime had become a chaotic storm of energy beams, missile explosions, and debris from destroyed ships. Ward's pilots used human-developed tactics that treated three-dimensional space like an aerial battlefield. Gold leader to all fighters, Ward transmitted. The defense platforms are coordinating their fire, break into attack pairs, and hit them from multiple angles. Ward's squadron dove toward a massive Zephyrian defense platform, their small ships weaving between energy beams that could vaporize a cruiser. At the last moment, they fired their quantum disruptors directly into the platform's crystal matrix. The ancient structure, which had defended Nexus Prime for 3,000 years, cracked like glass and exploded in a shower of rainbow light. On the ground, the urban warfare showcased everything that made humans dangerous opponents. While alien forces were trained for large-scale battles in open space, humans had spent millennia learning to fight in cramped, complicated environments where adaptation mattered more than raw firepower. King's forces moved through the city like water flowing around obstacles. When they encountered heavy resistance, they bypassed it and attacked from unexpected directions. When alien defenders tried to corner them, they used sewers, maintenance tunnels, and building interiors to escape and counterattack. "This is incredible," reported Krex as he watched human tactics in action. They fight like the city itself is their ally. But the real challenge lay ahead. The Hegemony Council chamber sat at the heart of a fortress that had never been breached. Energy shields, automated defenses, and elite guard units protected the 5 ancient rulers who had controlled the galaxy for 10 millennia. The breakthrough came when Dr. Kevin Lewis and engineer Vera Stone reached the Planetary Defense Control Center. For months, they had studied captured hegemony technology, looking for ways to turn the aliens' own systems against them. Beginning upload of the Liberation virus, Lewis reported, as he connected his equipment to the defense grid's main computer. This is either going to free every automated system on the planet, or it's going to kill us all. The virus spread through Nexus Prime's networks like wildfire. Suddenly, defense turrets that should have been firing at Alliance forces began targeting hegemony ships instead. Transportation systems that should have moved reinforcements started carrying them to the wrong locations. Even the city's environmental controls began working against the defenders. Impossible, raged Veltar from the council chamber. Our security systems are impenetrable. How are they controlling our own technology? The answer was simple. Humans had spent 50 years studying alien technology not to copy it, but to improve it. Every system the hegemony considered secure had weaknesses that human engineers could exploit. The climactic moment came when Captain Alex Hunt piloted his ship, the UES Defiant, on a suicide run against the ethereal flagship. The ancient vessel, powered by forces beyond normal understanding, had been systematically destroying Alliance ships with weapons that rewrote the laws of physics. All ships, this is Hunt, he transmitted to the fleet. I'm going to ram their command section. When I do, you'll have maybe 30 seconds before their backup systems come online. Make them count. Hunt's ship, loaded with every quantum disruptor humanity had built, crashed into the ethereal vessel's bridge. The explosion that followed lit up the space around Nexus Prime like a new star. For a brief moment, the most powerful ship in the hegemony fleet was defenseless. Alliance forces poured through the gap Hunt's sacrifice had created. Ships that had been held back by ethereal psychic attacks suddenly found their minds clear and their weapons free to fire. The tide of battle turned in an instant. "For Hunt!" Admiral Brown shouted as her fleet launched their final assault on the planetary defenses. For every human who died for freedom. But even as the battle raged above, the Hegemony Council was preparing their final gambit. Deep beneath the capital city, ancient machines that had slept for millennia began to wake. The Doomsday Protocol, a weapon system designed to destroy all life in the galaxy rather than allow the hegemony to fall. "If we cannot rule," Veltar declared to the other council members, "then nothing will survive to challenge us. Better a dead galaxy than a free one." The weapon that powered up beneath Nexus Prime was beyond anything humans had imagined. It drew energy from the planet's core, channeled it through technologies older than most civilizations, and prepared to send a wave of destruction across every inhabited world in the galaxy. Colonel King's ground forces raced through the city streets, following intelligence provided by Dr. Lewis's computer virus. They had minutes to reach the weapons control center before it fired. Behind them, the city burned as hegemony forces made their last desperate stand. "This is it," King told his troops as they reached the heavily defended entrance to the underground facility. "Everything we fought for comes down to the next few minutes." The battle for the control center was the most intense fighting of the war. Hegemony elite guards, armed with weapons that could disintegrate matter at the molecular level, fought with the desperation of beings who knew their entire civilization was ending. But they faced an enemy that had learned to survive against impossible odds. Saurian shock troops absorbed devastating fire, while human engineers worked to disable the doomsday device. Cetacean specialists used their natural sonar to map the facility's layout through solid rock. Geometric collective warriors turned their knowledge of ancient technology against the very weapons they had been forced to maintain. "Device offline in 30 seconds, Vera Stone reported as she frantically worked at the weapons control panel, "but I need more time to make sure it stays down." "You've got it," King replied, then turned to his troops. "Hold this position. No matter what comes through that door, we hold." What came through the door was every nightmare the hegemony could unleash. Energy beings that could phase through solid matter, crystalline warriors whose bodies were living weapons, and ancient security systems that had protected this facility since before humans discovered fire. But humanity had learned something during their long struggle for freedom. Sometimes the most important battles aren't won by the strongest or the most advanced. Sometimes they're won by those who refuse to give up. King's forces held the line. When their weapons ran out of power, they fought with captured alien equipment. When that failed, they used improvised weapons and bare hands. They held because they knew that every second they bought brought the galaxy closer to freedom. "Device permanently disabled," Stone finally announced. "The doomsday weapon will never fire again." Above them, the last of the orbital defenses fell to Alliance forces. The hegemony fleet, cut off from their command structure and facing an enemy that had turned their own technology against them, began to surrender. On the surface, hegemony ground forces laid down their weapons as the reality of their situation became clear. The government that had ruled for 10,000 years was falling, and even their ultimate weapon couldn't save them. President Carl Johnson stood at the podium in the Great Assembly Hall of Nexus Prime, looking out at the most diverse gathering in galactic history. Representatives from over 300 species filled the massive chamber, where once only the eye. Hegemony Council's puppet delegates had sat, now free beings from across the galaxy had come to build something new. "Citizens of the galaxy," Johnson began, his words translated into hundreds of languages and broadcast to billions of worlds. "Today we gather not as conquerors but as liberators. We come not to replace one form of tyranny with another, but to ensure that no being will ever again face the choice between slavery and death." The response was overwhelming. Roars, harmonics, energy pulses, and sounds that human ears could barely detect filled the chamber. For the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy was speaking with a unified voice, the voice of freedom. The document that emerged from the next 6 months of negotiations became known as the Terran Declaration. Based on principles that humanity had developed through centuries of struggle on Earth, it established the foundation for galactic law that would endure for generations. "All intelligent beings are created equal," read the opening line, "regardless of species, technology level, or physical form. No being has the right to enslave another. No government has the right to exist without the consent of the governed." Admiral Frank Cross watched the proceedings from the military sector, overseeing the massive task of dismantling the hegemony's war machine. Ships that had once terrorized innocent populations were being converted to peaceful purposes. Weapons that could destroy planets were being safely disposed of. Most importantly, the technology that had kept the hegemony in power was being shared freely with all Alliance members. "It's incredible," reported Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral and commanding the new Federation fleet. "Former hegemony worlds are asking to join the Federation faster than we can process their applications. Even some of the old Council species want to participate as equals." The integration wasn't always smooth. species that had been enemies for millennia had to learn to work together. The Zephyrians, who had once considered themselves superior to all other life forms, struggled to accept democratic principles. The Vorthon military caste system clashed with human concepts of equality, but Captain Roy Bell, now serving as the Federation's chief diplomat, had learned that the same qualities that made humans effective warriors also made them excellent peacemakers. "Every species brings something valuable to the Federation," he explained to reluctant former hegemony members. "Your knowledge, your skills, your perspectives. We need all of it to build a better galaxy." The transformation of individual worlds was remarkable. On Forge 9, the massive industrial complex that had once built ships for conquest now produced vessels for exploration and trade. Major Grace Foster, appointed as the world's first democratically elected governor, oversaw the conversion of slave barracks into proper housing and the establishment of schools for the children of former prisoners. 6 months ago, this world was a symbol of oppression, Foster said in her inaugural address. Today, it represents the possibility of redemption. No matter what crimes were committed in the past, every world and every being can choose to build a better future. The most challenging integration came from the ethereal worlds. These ancient beings, who had ruled through psychic manipulation for millennia, found it difficult to accept that their mental powers gave them no special rights over other species. Commander Joe Martinez, whose resistance to ethereal mental control had made him something of a legend, was appointed as humanity's ambassador to the ethereal domains. "Your abilities are impressive," he told the Ethereal Council, "but they don't make you better than anyone else. In the Federation, we judge beings by their actions, not their powers." Some ethereals chose to embrace the new order, using their abilities to help rather than dominate. Others retreated to isolated worlds where they could live according to their ancient ways without harming others. The Federation respected both choices, as long as no being was forced to serve against their will. The former hegemony capital of Nexus Prime became the Federation's center of government, but with a crucial difference. Instead of 5 rulers making decisions for the entire galaxy, hundreds of elected representatives debated and voted on issues that affected their worlds. Dr. Susan Hill, now serving as the Federation's chief medical officer, coordinated the massive effort to bring advanced health care to worlds that had been denied it for centuries. The hegemony used medical technology as a tool of control, she explained to her staff. "We're going to use it as it should be used, to heal and to help." The liberated prison worlds presented some of the greatest challenges. Beings who had spent decades in captivity needed time to learn how to live as free individuals. Entire generations had grown up knowing only slavery and oppression. Dr. Tony Green established rehabilitation centers throughout the galaxy, staffed by volunteers from every Alliance species. "Freedom isn't just about removing chains," he told his counselors. "It's about helping people remember how to dream again." The economic transformation was equally dramatic. The hegemony's economy had been based on forced labor and resource extraction. The Federation built a new system based on fair trade and mutual benefit. Worlds that had been strip-mined for their resources became trading partners. Species that had been enslaved became valued members of the galactic community. Captain Ashley Brown, commanding the Federation exploration fleet, led missions to the galaxy's outer regions where isolated species had hidden from hegemony expansion. "We're not here to conquer or control," she told First Contact teams. "We're here to offer friendship and trade. Every species has the right to choose its own path." Some of these isolated species were initially suspicious, having heard stories, of the hegemony's cruelty. But word of the Federation's principles spread quickly. Within 2 years, dozens of previously unknown civilizations had joined the growing alliance. The military transformation was carefully managed by Admiral Cross, who understood that the galaxy still needed protection from those who might try to recreate the old system. The Federation fleet was designed around human principles of defensive warfare and mutual support. "We're not building an empire," Cross